welcome to Served Up. This podcast is where hospitality meets leadership and where we take an honest look at the business of beverage. I'm Bridget Albert. I've spent my career building cocktail programs, mentoring rising talent, judging competitions, and advocating for women in our industry. I'm joined by my co-host, Eric Heemer, one of only 5 people in the world to hold both the Master Sommelier and Master of Wine titles. His depth of knowledge and global perspective brings tremendous insight to every conversation. This is Served Up. Hey y'all, it's Bridget here. In this interview, I chat with Naomi Ayala Collier. Naomi shares her roles in the United States Bartenders Guild and how she advocates for growth and excellence in the hospitality industry. Naomi highlights her charitable initiatives, showing how she leverages her platform to give back to the community and to support those in need. She shares personal stories of impact, illustrating the power of service and generosity in both professional and in her personal life. She also offers advice on combining leadership and philanthropy to create meaningful change in our industry. So sit back, relax, grab yourself your favorite cocktail, and enjoy the show. Naomi, welcome to Served Up. I'm happy to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're so welcome. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? How did growing up in Fort Worth really shape who you are today?
Well, I've been in the spirits and hospitality world for about 21 years, but I think you mentioning how did growing up in Fort Worth shape this, it was absolutely my relationship with my family, and everything was always about hospitality from the family setting. So, whether it was Sunday meals at my grandfather's house or getting together with, my dad throwing a barbecue and having all the cousins over, I learned hospitality very young. And so that absolutely shaped my viewpoint of, the Olive Garden slogan, when you're here, your family. And that's how I view hospitality. And it just kind of stuck with me this entire time.
That's wonderful. What drew you to Texas Christian University? And what's your best memory from your time there?
That was a fun one.
I'm taking you way back.
Absolutely. I know it's the origin story. Well, my mother attended TCU. It was a Fort Worth institution. If you're in Fort Worth, you love the Horned Frogs. It is how we grew up. And when I was looking at schools, I was a little bit younger. I was 17 and I barely turned 18 once I started school. And so it just made a little bit more sense to stay closer to home. I still got that dorm life experience. I still rushed and joined a sorority freshman year. And I had that wonderful experience of attending the university in my hometown. And then even my little sister attended after me. So it was very much a family tradition. Even my cousins went there. So TCU is a family tradition for us.
That's very cool. Was there a moment early on, maybe in college or even as a child, that really sparked your love for serving others?
I think so. It was probably when I joined my sorority. Our philanthropy served women. It was the Women's Center in Fort Worth, and they serve survivors of domestic abuse and sexual violence and human trafficking. And our sorority, our chapter was so active. We won service awards nationally for the Pan-Hellenic Council because of how much we would raise and how much we would put into the community for that philanthropic aim. And seeing how much it affected the people in my community. And then later on, it was probably a couple of years out of college that I was told a story. A child went to their parent after the Women's Center went into their school and basically gave the speech of, if something's happening to you, if you're being hurt, you need to tell an adult. And it really touched me that the money that we were raising directly contributed to these programs in schools taking place. And because of that, someone's child was able to speak up and come forward and say, like, this is happening. And, just knowing that things like that actually occur and seeing firsthand the domino effect of raising money to helping someone and helping a child, it meant so much to me.
Yeah, that's a really powerful story. Your work collectively, right, directly impacted someone. It's really a great story. So let's fast forward just a little bit. And what brought you into hospitality? Was it right after graduation? Were you serving in some sort of hospitality while in college?
Oh,
What's the scoop?
It was needing to make some money in college.
Hey.
Yeah, I basically heard that, hey, Papacitos will hire servers that have zero experience, and they sure did. And I, grabbed a tray and learned how to, make cocktails and serve hot enchiladas. And it was my very first job. And from there, I went to work at another family restaurant and establishment in Fort Worth called Sardines that had been in Fort Worth for 40 years. And it was just from there that I really learned that, one, I'm great at multitasking in a fast-paced environment. Like, I can run the floor and make salads and make cocktails and drop dishes and put in tickets and do all of that. And from there, I learned that it was a really great opportunity if I wanted to travel and live somewhere else, that I could get a job anywhere. And that's what I did. After a few years in Fort Worth, I decided that I wanted to live somewhere else. So I picked Philadelphia and I moved there. And within the first day of living there, I had a job lined up. And it's just because the hospitality industry allows people to be mobile in that way. It was just a really cool experience. And from there, I learned about spirits, learned about wine, learned about service, learned about food, and had a great time.
It's amazing. I mean, you just mentioned like Papacitos, which is part of like what Papa Do's. And it's just so very like Texas. My parents lived in Katy, Texas for a long time, right outside of Houston there. And we went to so many great spots, not just national accounts, but one of my favorite places, they would just throw like oyster shells all over the freaking place. It was super like, probably not the cleanest place in the world, but it was delicious. It's called Captain Tom's and I just loved it. But
oh, heck yeah.
What a great spot to really to start your career.
Yeah. And, I'm very grateful for that. And also, I still go back and eat the queso all the time. So, hey,
why not?
I'm like lifelong customer here.
Queso's the best. So when you started in hospitality, what really made you fall in love with hospitality and the spirit industry as a whole? Because I always say you either love it or you hate it because there's no gray area in this industry. No. I'm sorry. It's way too aggressive. It'll run you over if you allow it to, right? So you have to really love something about it.
No, completely. I think for me, it's basically the difference between service and hospitality. Service, I think of steps, mise en place. You think of, you greet the table, you bring out waters and cocktails. It's steps of service, but hospitality is how they feel. It's how you make someone feel at the end of the day. Do they feel welcome? Do they feel appreciated? Do they want to come back and spend more time with you? And growing up in a very hospitable environment. And, part of this is like my Mexican heritage. You're always feeling like your family. And it's always like, oh, you're coming over. I'm going to feed you now. It's always how you feel in someone's home. And that's how it feels working in a restaurant or bar. It's you are family. And I want you to feel welcome and comfortable and happy here. And then you'll come back and, we'll get to know each other more. We'll become friends. And it's a wonderful way to make connections.
That's such a great description, like that distinction, right?
Yeah.
Between the two. So let's speed it up a little bit to where you are today. And I know that you have a terrific career with CVH Scotches. Can you talk about how your work there really expanded your view of the spirits world?
Well, I've loved spirits for years, and especially Scotch whiskey. I think I've had a passion for Scotch whiskey for over a decade now. It's starting in one place, like we mentioned, Papacitos, learning about tequilas and going from one place to another. In Philadelphia, I worked at a place called Mahogany on Walnut, and it was a cigar bar, and they had just hundreds of Scotch whiskeys. And I fell in love, and this was probably 15 years ago, fell in love with the category, fell in love with bourbons as well, rye whiskeys, rums, just everything. And so now being able to work with CVH Spirits that has these quintessential whiskeys in the Scotch spirits world, Bunnahabhain and Deanston, Tobermory and Lechick. These whiskeys are storied, they're unique, and they're wonderful. And so being able to fall in love with whiskeys in my, early to mid 20s, and then working for a company that just has these iconic brands, it's a wonderful experience.
That's really, really cool. I think that anymore that Scotch whiskey sometimes gets overlooked as a category. We get so focused on, maybe the mezcals or the bourbons, but sometimes the Scotch gets kind of looked over.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's, what's popular, what's in vogue right now. For the longest time, it was vodka. That was the fastest growing category.
I always say, man, it keeps my lights on. I don't hate vodka. I don't. I don't.
And it's one of those things. It's like things change, and we've seen it go from vodka being the fastest growing category to bourbon and American whiskey. Mm-hmm. And now we see agave spirits and Mexican spirits really taking off. And in some ways that harms the industry, and in some ways that helps the industry. I mean, we're seeing it. We're seeing what happens to Mexican farmers and families and villages, what happens to water sources, to pay rates, to agave prices. We're able to watch all of these things happen in real time. And it's just because of the popularity of the spirit. So I wish that the people would come back to Scotch whiskey. We have plenty of it. We've been aging it for many years just for everyone. And I think that we will see things shift again. Maybe it's going to be rum that's next. Maybe it'll be cognac that comes up next. But I would love to see Scotch whiskey.
So.
I know.
God, I love cognac. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm also a gin drinker. So if we could just have gin parties all the time, martini hours every hour, that would be nice as well. But it is kind of interesting to watch what category of spirits is going to come up, what's going to come down. And so I think we're ready for another shift. It's just when and what is it going to be next?
Yeah, absolutely. You wear so many hats. It's really inspiring. And I do think, because you have just really dedicated your life to service, beyond just hospitality. But one of the things I know that you shared with me that you're currently a part of is Safe Bar, which really, helps bars, restaurants, and nightlife, venues, to protect and to support patrons. Why is that work important to you?
So a few reasons. And this, we kind of mentioned it a little bit ahead of time, like it's okay to get political, but we will get a little bit political real fast on this topic. In states like Texas, where you have wages for service industry workers that are $2.13 per hour, we sometimes refer to this.
Oh, stop right there.
Yeah,
what did you just say? You need to say that again, because did you say $2.13?
Yes. So in states like Texas, you're able to pay service industry workers that are tipped employees $2.13 per hour.
You cannot even buy a cup of coffee for $2.13.
Yeah. The bars and restaurants, what they're doing is they're claiming a tip credit. They're claiming a wage credit because your tips make up the rest of your minimum wage, essentially. And so there are multiple states where we are able to tie in and correlate instances of sexual harassment and sexual assault in the workplace to these states that have wage discrimination. And we're able to actually see a correlation between EEOC statistics and Department of Justice statistics to see that workers in these states are preyed upon more because they rely upon tips more. And so they're more likely to, let's just say, like, put up with bad behavior, whether it's coming from other customers because the customers are paying their wages, the managers who are putting them on shifts, or the owners of the restaurants that are employing them, period. And so they're more likely to tolerate harassment and assault in the workplace. And so it means a lot to me to be able to volunteer and work with Safe Bar Network in Texas to talk about bystander intervention. And a lot of times we're talking about it from the point of view of the staff protecting their guests. But I hope that in some way that it trickles down to this is bad behavior. And I hope you recognize it for yourself as well. And in these states where you have wage discrimination, you also see higher instances of harassment and assault amongst women, obviously, but amongst the trans and LGBT communities and also amongst BIPOC communities as well. Okay. So it's really important to discuss being able to be safe in your workplace and being able to be safe when you go out to have a drink or go to a restaurant, to hang out with your girlfriends, to go on a date. It's very important to be safe, to keep this entire industry moving and flowing and happy.
Yeah, absolutely. So can you speak specifically on how Safe Bar, helps? How do they help anybody who's in hospitality that's either experienced this, or bars or restaurants that want to set programs to make sure, right, that their teams are educated?
It starts off with basically a referral, and it's a 10-minute phone call with Safe Bar Network to see if this program's right for you. How does it work? And really, it's a facilitator, and they have facilitators all over the country. And they'll even have somebody travel into your area to facilitate a 1-hour conversation. And it's really a conversation. It's not a giant presentation. There's not a PowerPoint involved. It is a conversation between the staff on what they notice and what they can do to help stop instances of harassment and assault for their guests. So it's just a conversation starter to make sure that we're noticing what's happening in our bars and how to stop it, how to prevent it. But the benefits of this, there's posters, there's signage that bars and restaurants that they put up that say, like, we're part of the Safe Bar Network. If something's going wrong in your night, please let one of our staff members know and we know how to handle it. So one, it communicates to the guests that, hey, you are in a safe place. If there's something going on tonight that somebody's making you feel uncomfortable, please let us know. But also these bars and restaurants, they are eligible for sometimes insurance rate. Their insurance rates will lower because they get certified through these programs. And it is a free program, completely free to the bar and restaurant.
That's incredible. Yeah. That is amazing. And I wish that something like this had existed when I started out in hospitality over 30 years ago. It did not. And maybe one day I'll write a book on all my experiences. But I think I'd have to change some names.
It would be the tell-all. But one thing that I've noticed is, bars and restaurants, normally they are not part of a big corporation like Papacitos. We had HR training. Bars and restaurants that are owned by an individual, or, there might be 1 or 2 locations that they don't have an HR. They don't go through any kind of preventative training. And so having something like this, one, helps lower claims that might go to the EEOC for themselves, or it might just help serve in some capacity that HR doesn't exist for them. So whatever it is, I think for those individual independent bars, this is going to make so much more of a difference for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they just cannot afford, the services, an HR service.
Yeah.
The bottom line,
Absolutely. And safe bars can also provide paperwork. They can provide policies that you have your staff sign so that you have a mechanism that a lawyer has drawn up and somebody has approved the language for policies in your bar or restaurant.
That's really, really great. Like I said before, you wear so many hats. And I know one of them is within the United States Bartenders Guild. Can you first and foremost tell our listeners what the United States Bartenders Guild is and how you currently serve the United States Bartenders Guild today?
Sure. The USBG, the United States Bartenders Guild, really exists to advance the hospitality and the bartending world and community. So the core values include things like service and sharing knowledge and education, tradition, camaraderie, and also integrity. And it was founded over 75 years ago. And it has been really one of the main mechanisms for how bartenders connect with one another on an organized level in the United States. So there are two arms to this. There's the 501c6 side of the USBG, which is the guild, which is the membership portion of this. And then there's the 501c3 side, which we opened several years ago. That is the philanthropy side. That is the charitable side. So I serve within both the 501c6 portion, the guild, and also the 501c3. So with the guild, I work locally in the Dallas chapter, and I have served as a board of director for the Dallas chapter for several years, off and on. I've served as president. I'm serving as treasurer right now, and it really just aims to advance the community in Dallas, Texas. I'm so proud that we have won chapter of the year twice. So that is a huge, feather in our cap for Dallas. And it's always been great to host educational events, to host philanthropic events, community service programs, happy hours, dinners, lunches, just really getting everybody in Dallas together and showing that the bartender community is strong and one voice, if you will. And so we have these chapters nationwide. But for the 501c3 portion, the National Charity Foundation, I'm proud to serve as a board of director and also vice president. And through that, we mostly work on grant giving, on philanthropic endeavors, and then also community service.
Really amazing from where the foundation started to where it is today. It's just incredible to watch it evolve and to grow. I believe that you also host the USBG Foundation Weekly.
I did.
You
right.
did. Yes, yes. I mean,
that was during
we could just
COVID
keep
times.
bragging about you for hours over
Please
here.
Don't.
You wear so many hats. You do so much good work. But what's a story or a conversation out of that work, that really had stuck with you?
Oh, gosh.
And maybe tell our listeners what the USBG Foundation Weekly is.
Right. So I don't believe we're still doing Foundation Weeklies. I think we stopped that. But we were hosting Foundation Weekly updates during the COVID shutdown, essentially. So because of the nature of the USBG Foundation, we gave out over $10 million in microgrants to bartenders and servers that were out of work. We were actively giving, and we were very publicly recognized as one of the hospitality foundations that was supporting individuals that were out of work. And so we wanted to keep people abreast of what we were up to, how these grants were progressing, what they were supporting, who they were going to. And we also wanted to highlight all of the programs that the USBG Foundation does. So whether that's, the Helen David Relief Fund bike rides with Tony Abu Ghanim, or whether it's the Campari Day of Service events that we host, we wanted to make sure that we were kind of giving a large view of the foundation in every aspect of what we do. So we would host interviews with folks from Discus. We would host interviews with folks on financial literacy. We would host interviews with people that were running amazing bar programs and making sure that their bartenders were getting health care. So all of these programs that we were engaged in, we tried to put those into the Foundation Weeklies so that we could highlight what we were doing while we were simultaneously being lauded as an organization really supporting the hospitality community when it was at its lowest.
So amazing. Super. It's such great work that you continue to do. And can you talk about where do you see the USBG Foundation, just a couple of years from now, in the future?
Yeah.
Where's it heading? Where's it going?
Yeah. What are we doing next? No, yes. I think one of the hardest problems that we have right now, and this is a problem that I've seen with so many organizations, the giving is down across the board for any organization. Any charitable organization right now is bleeding money. I have been fortunate enough to work with organizations that work with, veterans experiencing homelessness or animal shelters, and everyone is experiencing a drought. And so I think the first thing that we need to do for the National Charity Foundation, for the USBG, is to re-energize giving. And that's going to start, of course, with going to all of our supplier partners, beer and spirits and wine, and going to them and saying, hey, remember us? You used to donate so much to us. I know that sales are down, but the need is still there. And I don't know if all of these major organizations that would do huge gift giving annually just said, oh, after COVID, all the problems in the world are solved, or if the economy is just in such a terrible state right now that gift giving is so low. But the first thing that we need to do is focus on re-energizing our bank account so that we can reopen and revitalize these programs to their fullest extent. I really want to see the Bartenders Emergency Assistance Program come back up and running. That was a huge program for so many people across the country. And these programs are not just open to USBG members. Legally, they are open to anybody. So that serves in a hospitality environment that qualifies as a bartender. So if you're involved in the service of alcohol at all, you qualify for these grants. But the Bartender Emergency Assistance Program was such a wonderful way to help bartenders that experienced a catastrophe, whether it was a natural disaster or somebody breaking their leg, or you have a death in the family, you get sick, whatever it is. We were able to get money to somebody that needed it nearly, like almost immediately, within weeks. And so I really want to see this program come back up and to flourish again like it used to. But the first thing that we need is gift giving.
Yeah.
So whatever that means, we need small donations, we need large donations, we need everything in between to make sure that we can help people.
Listeners, if you feel like you can give, Naomi, can you tell us where they should go?
Yeah, so it would be usbgfoundation.org. And that is the foundation page. And you can even see all of the amazing programs that we have going on, because it's not just, hey, we're giving out grants. We have philanthropic programs. We have community service programs and educational programs as well. So there's so much going on, but I would also encourage them to check out usbg.org. And from that, you can learn all about the USBG, what chapters are near you in your community and what programs are going on, whether they're social events, educational events, community service events. You can really see what's going on in your area. But from there, you can check out resources. There are so many resources that the USBG offers for bartenders that might need help, whether it's mental health assistance or legal assistance. There's so many programs that we offer. So either one of those websites, you're able to help someone else, or if you need to find help as well, I would recommend either of those sites.
It's incredible. You know, your work of service goes so beyond hospitality. So I do want to shift gears for just a second, because I think that you're a big animal lover.
Oh my God.
Like I am.
We love them.
I know that you've done some work with some no-kill shelters.
Yeah.
What inspired you to work with the fur babes?
Oh, the fact that I love them all, and I try to, it's like Pokemon. I got to catch them all. No, right now I have one dog. At one point I was running with a crew of 3, but I have a Doberman that's an albino Doberman, and she is a problem child. So just with all the health issues. So I'm like, I'm down to 1 right now. But I have always loved working with animal shelters, and I've tried to rescue all of my animals. I had a pit bull named Jasmine that I literally found in a dumpster and was a foster fail. So that was wonderful. Loved her for her entire life. But I was actually connected to Operation Kindness, through someone else. And it was because of the liquor industry. They're like, hey, can you help us out on this part of this aspect of this event that we're doing? And I said, yeah, sure. Why not? And I show up in a rented dress and very expensive shoes. And I had no idea, but they had the puppy adoption area in the front area of this gala. And that is how I came home with this albino Doberman.
Oh my gosh.
I had 2 glasses of champagne and picked out a new puppy. And she is just the lifelong friend that I always wanted to. And so I've always been an animal lover. My family has always had pets, cats, dogs, and it was, how can you say no? How can you say no?
How can you say no? We've always rescued our animals. I have 2 rescues. They're actually being quite well behaved at this moment. They're very quiet right now, which is unusual. But yes, I love that you're out there doing the work. It's just amazing. What's next for you, Naomi? You've done so much.
I have no idea. Really, I'm settling into home life. So I just recently got married. I got married in December. Thank you. We had a Christmas wedding. So it was wonderful. And so really, we're just focusing on our life. I moved from Dallas to Austin. So I've recently become an Austin gal. And we're just focusing on really just being newlyweds and what that means for us.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Do you have any words of advice for anyone in hospitality or beyond, right? Any of our listeners that want to get involved in servicing others?
I think it comes quite naturally for anybody in the hospitality industry. You have a natural inclination to help, to ask, to anticipate needs. And I have never known a group that is more giving than bartenders in my life. I remember when we had hurricanes hit in Houston and Dallas raised, I think it was like $60,000.
Wow.
Like we hosted an event and we raised $60,000 for hurricane relief. In a few years back, I think it was 2018, 2019, we had tornadoes. And in Dallas, we raised $80,000 for tornado relief. And I've never known a group of folks that are more giving and caring than bartenders. They anticipate needs. And at the end of the day, people visit bartenders on the best day of their life and the worst day of their life. And so you have to have a natural empathy towards other people. And I think it comes very naturally. And so if there are bartenders that say, yeah, you know what, I do care about my guests and my regulars, and I do enjoy what I do, talking to people about their problems, about their highs, their lows, their joys. I think it's very easy to find a passion, you know, whatever that may be. For me, it's survivors, it's veterans, it's animals, and it's bartenders. And there's so many different organizations that someone can get involved in, whatever that is. Maybe it's community art. Maybe it's, you know, working with children. It just depends on what that is. And so I really hope that somebody says like, oh yes, this is a passion of mine. I'm going to find an avenue to express that, because it does bring joy and it does bring a sense of fulfillment and completeness to somebody's life. So I hope that they take that sense of empathy and just run with it, whatever that is.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Where can our listeners find you, Naomi?
Oh, at home, in bars, on the internet. No, my Instagram is Naomi Served Neat. And so that is probably the best place to find me, or a USBG event. Now that I live in Austin, I'll be at a lot of USBG events here in Austin. We also have the USBG Summit coming up in Philadelphia at the end of April. So if anybody wants to go to Philadelphia in April, it's going to be gorgeous. You can find me there as well. So I recommend any of those places and spaces.
Wonderful. Well, with that, I want to thank you for being on Served Up, for just, for sharing your story. You're completely inspiring in every way.
No.
Yes, you are.
Coming from you, that's actually such high praise. Thank you.
Well, you're out there doing the work. Thank you for being out there doing the work. Yes.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Well, with that, I just want to wish you just some great health and a lot of peace, Naomi. Thank you so much for being on Served Up.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. Served Up is brought to you by Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. Produced by Zunu.online. Music by We Killed the Lion can be found on Spotify. Make sure to subscribe to be notified of our future Served Up episodes. Cheers.